Hello, I'm Chester. We created and calculated the Ryan curve to determine at what level of government spending as a percentage of gross domestic product could we deliver absolutely the highest level of transferred or shared prosperity, delivering funds to the needy and those less fortunate. In doing that, we looked at a number of different countries during different time periods, recent time periods, and from that developed a plot, reduced it to an equation, and you see that shown here. The first 10% only provides for the de minimis government functions of courts, schools, and roads, and so forth. After that, an increasing percentage transferred to those less fortunate or to the needy continually increase until 20% of GDP is being spent by combined governments. The combined governments is what we would refer to as national, state, and local governments. Past 20% mark, the amount that ultimately goes to the poor over a long period of time decreases steadily. We were quite surprised to see this, but the decrease is because although the poor are receiving a larger percentage, they're receiving a larger percentage of a smaller economy. There was three things that we found of great interest. One was that the optimal occurred at just 20%. We thought, much like the Laffer curve, which deals with taxes, the maximum would occur perhaps at 33%. But it didn't. So we looked to confirm this with other countries that were operating in that range. Three standout occurs: Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taiwan, each who spend 17% of GDP to run their entire government processes. Those countries are doing exceptionally well, at close to what we feel would be the optimum. They have, each of them, have more millionaires per capita than the United States. I find Singapore in particular is an interesting case because if you look back to the old black and white Bob Hope era films, the Seabees would stop off in Singapore coming back from Japan, and Singapore was characterized somewhat accurately as girls in grass skirts and bamboo huts. Now, as mentioned, they have more millionaires per capita in the United States and are a thriving economic center. The second thing we found that was surprising was that if the first 10% goes to government, the second 10% is a transfers to the needy. That second percent is a de facto tithe. And we certainly didn't start out trying to establish this. This was a complete surprise. And but perhaps it's a backhanded endorsement of the idea that 20% of combined government spending will get the most to the poor, because societies that have embraced a tithe have continued over a couple millennia. They would not have continued through to today, or this idea would not have continued through to today, if it didn't somehow work. So perhaps it's a Darwinian endorsement of the 20% mark. The third concept that we find was surprising is that the United States is so far out on the curve. The current Democratic administration is spending 43% of GDP on government functions. And again, this includes national, state, and local spending. The Republican challenger is proposing to reduce that to 34%. This level of spending is approximately twice what other countries use and about twice what the ideal is. The result of this is that, say, the average of these two over the long term will deliver half of the transferred prosperity or shared prosperity to the poor that could be transferred to the poor if we slightly reduced or only provided for those truly in need now and continue to do that over time, leaving money in the economy so the economy grows. This all works, the fact that that it peaks at 20%, because at that level, when most of the money is left in the economy, the growth rate is something like 4%, 3 to 4%. That means the poor, the middle class, and everyone else are receiving a raise every year of 4%, 3 or 4% year after year after year. That builds up so much that the economy can double in 20 years. Much like my life is twice as good as my parents', and my parents' life is twice as good as my grandparents'. At our current rate of expenditure, growth is only in the 1%, 1.3%, 1.7% range. Economic doubling then takes 70 years. So when you have a stagnant or flat economy, the amount that goes to the poor is not nearly as much as when the economy is doubling every generation or so. In addition to learning about the maximization of money to the poor at a 20% mark, we can learn something about jobs from this chart. The difference between the current expenditure rate and the future expenditure rate, we calculate out to equal 13 million jobs. And the Republican challenger claims that they will provide 12 million jobs. So at least other people are claiming numbers similar to our model would predict. And secondly, and I think most importantly, this line, this curve, not dropping off but continuing up, is the curve that represents the salaries that our grandchildren will earn under different scenarios. We could pick a scenario of, under the current circumstance, a grandchild earning $60,000 in the future. That grandchild would presumably have some level of health care, some level of retirement provided by the government, and have a life commensurate with making $60,000 a year. Under the ideal scenario, where we cut back support to those that are truly needy now and keep it at that level, he would make not $60,000 but $150,000. And at the $150,000 level, he would need to provide his own health care and retirement, but presumably making $150,000 a year, he can do that quite well. So those are the lessons. 20% is ideal. Salaries increase as you get towards the ideal, and this path leads to perhaps not shared prosperity, but shared decline. And a last thought is, we're looking to say, well, what is the fair share that the rich should pay? It is this amount right here, the 20%. A little bit below for some, a little bit above for others, but it makes no sense to tax people more than 20%, or much more than 20%, because it only delivers less to the poor over time, and there's no fairness to that. It's like asking a farmer to not only give up a portion of his crop, but to give up his seed corn. He can't grow as large a crop the next year. In our case, the economy can't grow as much the next year because so much of the economic capital is taken out of it and passed out, reducing growth in future years. So I hope this has been helpful in understanding the political discourse, and I thank you.